Chicken Jockey.
Chicken Jockey!
So tasty. Keeps me going. Keeps me up at night. What? Minecraft will always have a very special place in my heart. It was a big part of my neurodivergent childhood, and it was one of the biggest things that got me through some very difficult times in my life. Regardless of this, however, I had no intention of seeing the movie until a very momentous night in spring of 2025. Allow me to set the stage for you. 'Tis the night of my senior prom. A Friday, in late April. I, being the single lonely goober that I am, drove myself down to the supermarket in order to fetch myself some of the wonderful sushi in which I so desperately adore. There, I happen upon a fellow churchgoer, and we make arrangements for me to spend my solitude-destined evening, prior to the dance, chit-chatting at their place for a bit. So, prior to, making my way to this wonderful family's lovely humble abode, I stopped by the local coffee cart to, grab myself a 24-ounce birthday cake frappe with whipped cream and colorful sprinkles. My favorite diabetes-filled caffeinated beverage. Afterward, of course, I make my way to the event itself. The, party, the dance, the ball, or what have you. Prom. There, I flailed my arms and legs about like the autismic little rat that I am, in an effort to say that I wasted my time doing something a blind, deaf, and senseless man might consider this thing in which we call dancing. After a painstakingly depression-filled 3 hours of making myself look the fool, I decided it would be best to make my departure. I recalled something from earlier, however. A couple of friends of mine had decided to make their leave early, in order to go watch a film about an hour's drive north of us. This film was no other than a Minecraft movie. Yes, you heard me right. A Minecraft movie. After wrestling with this insatiable primal urge to join them in their Minecraftian adventures for quite some time, I, much like Bilbo Baggins, very nearly too late, finally decided to leave the comfort of my humble Promshire, hop into my magnificent, speedy automobile, a nigh untouched gift from my father, and chase after them. So, after an incredibly enjoyable journey through the nighttime breeze on the dark, brooding, empty roads of the Appalachian Basin, I found myself sat afront a silver screen, barely on time, prepared to dedicate the next hour and a half of my life to the honor and pleasure of viewing none other than a Minecraft film. Now, do not let yourself be fooled. This is merely the prologue to my very intellectual analysis of this historic video game film. So, be prepared for the raw power that is filmographic literary analysis. Dropping the voices somewhat, only somewhat because I am just a little bit autismic, I actually have a surprising amount to say on this film. But before that, I just want to express how much I love going to the theater. It is such a vibe, dude. Like, seriously, we need to normalize going to the theater to view movies because it's such a nice experience. I love it so much. Like, especially when it's like, maybe like half an hour at least drive away, maybe two, or 2.5 hours, maybe like an hour's drive away, not too far, but like there's just something about that feeling of driving or riding down the highway, down like an empty highway at night, going to see a film, going to see a movie at the theater. And then you get to the theater, you sit down with your bungee-sized Coca-Cola, or if you're one of those damnable Pepsi enjoyers, or God forbid, a Dr. Pepper enjoyer, you get your soda, your massive, giant-ass soda, and you get your popcorn, and you go and you walk into the room itself. If you're lucky, there won't be too many people there. I personally prefer it when there aren't just a whole lot of people there. And you sit down with your junk food in hand, in front of the giant screen in front of you, all speakers lining the walls, and you watch the movie. And it is just such a nice experience. We need to normalize going to the theater to watch movies. It needs to be done more. Anyway, moving on to the actual analysis. So this movie is very, very plot light. Basically, Jack Black's character Steve, yes, that's Steve, gets into a tussle with some piglins from the Nether, and over this cube thing called the Orb of Dominance. And of course, they win, capture Steve, and Steve manages to get his dog, Dennis, to take back the orb and take it to the real world in order to keep it from the piglins so that they don't take over the world. In the real world, some misfits in the fictional suburb of Chugless, Idaho, are having various issues in their day-to-day lives. So when Jason Momoa's character finds the orb, at a storage auction, he basically just discards it, and through a series of wildly shocking, unexpected events, the characters meet up, and some stuff with the Orb of Dominance, and they're thrusted into the wonderful world of Minecraft. They're introduced to Jack Black's character Steve. Some stuff happens, they explore the world of Minecraft, yada yada. The piglins get the orb back, and they have to take it back from them in order to save the world.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry.
So, I want to get into one of the things that I found most interesting about this movie, something that deeply intrigued me beforehand, the setting that I mentioned. So I was very intrigued by how they were going to handle the dimensions in this movie, especially because they have, live action actors in a very clearly CGI world. So the way they kind of handled that is with a portal, of course, between the real world and the Minecraftian worlds. I initially thought that the portal between the overworld and the real world was a reference to the Aether mod. So I wanted to throw that out there, but only the portal itself was blue, and the outline, the border was black, like obsidian, and it would have had to been the color of glowstone for it to be a definite Easter egg or reference, but I thought that was something worth making note of. I definitely feel like this animation style, could work really well with actual Minecraft CGI Minecraft characters instead of live action actors. I can understand why they chose to use live action actors instead, mostly because of the big names and because this film is very clearly for the purpose of promotional. It's clearly there. It was clearly made as promotional material to get people into the games. But I still think it would have been really interesting to explore this kind of world with this CGI animation style, with the characters also being CGI. The only The only thing that I think could use some reworking for the CGI is the villagers, unless they still kind of played into the uncanniness of them. Yeah, there wasn't too much like super special about the overworld. I thought they did a good job with it. Like the specifically the entities, like the mobs and stuff, I thought were really well done. And the villagers were like really uncanny valley. That was something that stood out. Same for the mobs. I actually thought a lot of the mobs, like the sheep and stuff, looked kind of cool in the CGI, in like the CGI version. But it definitely, especially with the villagers, because they look freaking cursed, dude. But I feel like they play into it, which I think is really good, right? Like the film, I feel like really focuses a lot on trying to be as game accurate as possible, as much as it can be with a CGI / live action film, which I think it actually mirrors the game pretty closely. The creators, I feel like, realized, like, if these villagers are gonna look even kind of normal, we're gonna have to change their design and the way they look drastically. So instead of doing that, they made them uncanny valley, they made them look cursed, and they played into it. They used it for the bit. And I personally thought that was great. Before I get into the Nether, because I have a lot to say on the Nether, I think it's really cool, I'll briefly mention that there was no end dimension, which I think makes sense. The end dimension is pretty bare bones, and I feel like would be difficult to implement in the film in an interesting way. There were some slightly strange continuity issues involving like the end and stuff, but I think all in all it was probably the right choice to leave that out. And I'm pretty sure, I'm not 100% sure on this, so don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure Mojang is wanting to update the end. They just haven't got sort of like they did with the Nether. They just haven't got around to it yet, because being official, that takes a lot of work. That's a whole other topic, like how mods can come out so quickly, but the official game takes like months. But point is, I think it was in the end good that they omitted the end out, because one, they're going to be changing it, hopefully, in the hopefully not too distant future, and two, it would have been like pretty bare bones and difficult to implement in a way that was interesting within the film. Now, the Nether, I personally found super interesting, particularly visually. I think the Nether really was a huge highlight of this movie, especially from a more, I guess, kind of esoteric and artistic perspective. Were it not like a Minecraft movie, I really feel like they could have explored a lot of really cool elements of the Nether. Unfortunately, the film is very comedy focused and focused on it's reasonably so used more as promotional material rather than an artistic piece. So it makes sense that they wouldn't explore something like that, but I think in maybe like a fantasy setting, that would be really cool. Like the piglins. The piglins are such an interesting and like neat species, like creature. I really feel like that would be super interesting to explore in a more artistically focused piece. Again, maybe like something fantasy, right? Because Minecraft in itself is slightly fantasy. I think part of the reason that I found the Nether so interesting is because Minecraft at its core really is just a kind of dull and bland game, in particular the setting, and so that kind of made the Nether stand out, right? I do actually think it is pretty significant and important for the base vanilla world to be kind of dull and uninteresting like that, but it does make it a little difficult to explore in a story involved context or in any sort of world or plot driven narrative. There's a wonderful video by a creator by the name of Bam Marks about why Minecraft feels so lonely. Wonderful video. I highly recommend going to check that out. Also, I'll leave a link in the description. Also, while you're down there, do me a favor and leave a like and subscribe. Manifesting image of the video right now, by the way. So I want to talk a little bit more about the game accuracy of this movie. I think that the game accuracy is another part of why this film can be so dull at points, and specifically why the setting is so dull, which I don't think is necessarily a bad thing, but it does kind of take away from some of the more interesting world-building aspects and ways in which that could be explored and developed were the creators allowed more creative liberty in adapting the game into a film. And that leads me to another point I have on the movie. There are plenty of moments where it feels like the characters, and in particular Jack Black's character, are really just trying to explain some of the fundamentals of the game. And while that's not very bad, while that's not necessarily a bad thing, though, again, promotional material, it does at times kind of feel like they're explaining it for a third grade audience who has never touched a real game before in their life, aside from, you know, playing Roblox while sitting in their mommy's lap before suckling themselves to sleep in their middle school siblings' Fortnite blanket in a crib that's way too small for them. And that's really more of an issue, as well as kind of a feature with the game itself. You're kind of just tossed into this world without any explanation on what to do or like how things work or even the basic fundamental mechanics of the game. You're really just kind of tossed into this world and expected to figure everything out for yourself, either that or look it up, which can be a pretty good game making philosophy. But if not for the YouTube culture surrounding this game, and if not for the YouTube culture surrounding this game, it would never have hit the mainstream, and it would be like a huge issue to try to figure all that stuff out on your own, I feel like. But honestly, that's a whole other topic. That's like a huge rabbit hole to go down. And while it does feel kind of like it's spoon feeding you mechanics and like fundamentals of how the game works, and it can be a little annoying at times, it's really pretty inobtrusive. It's just that if you are moderate to very experienced Minecraft player, you may notice that stuff and may find it a little more annoying how it's spoon feeding you the mechanics. But if you're not already pretty big into Minecraft anyway, you probably won't even notice these moments, so that's kind of more of a personal qualm I have with it, I guess. Or if you had issues with the movie basically being promotional material for the game. Another issue that I just want to toss in here real quick is at the beginning of the film, we get this like montage of Jack Black just building all this cool stuff, just going ham, building this massive place called Steve's World. And he makes this just massive, incredible city with just incredible in scale, with just all this architecture and all these buildings, all these creations he's made. And then we just never see it again. The most we see is like a small village, you know? I'm like, why are you gonna show that if you're not gonna use it again? We just see the basic vanilla structures that are there from the beginning, and we don't get to see his world. Which, again, fits into the promotional focus of the film. But still, like, come on, man. Now, on the visuals, I actually really liked the way they handled the CGI in this for the most part. It's this really interesting mix of this weird, like, realism and stylistic rigidity that kind of mimics the blockiness of the base game while still allowing for it to work well with our characters and in the setting and in like a filmographic setting. And aside from the villagers, which I've already discussed, it really, I feel like, works really well, like 99% of the time, and looks pretty good. Like, I feel like it developed its own style, and it's pretty interesting, if you ask me. The cinematography and the general visual harmony of the scenes, I feel like, was generally done pretty well. There wasn't, I feel like, any reason for it to particularly stand out, and I feel like a lot of that is due to the content of the film and of the shots of the world of what's being filmed, and the use of CGI and stuff kind of make it difficult for any cinematics to particularly stand out. But I didn't think really at any points in the movie it was by any means bad. There's also, I guess, a possibility that I haven't developed an eye for that too, though. But I generally think it was just pretty mediocre. I feel like it's one of those things you don't really notice unless it's bad, unless it's like horrible. But it wasn't terrible. There are also, of course, a few action sequences. I can only really remember 3 off the top of my head. That might have been all there was. There was when our cast first enters the realm of Minecraft and it's nighttime. They haphazardly build this like dirt and wood tower to escape the oncoming horde of mobs, of hostile mobs. And then there's them getting attacked by some piglins in the village, and then there's the final battle for the cube orb of Diddlywink. I feel like I couldn't really take any of these action sequences particularly seriously, because they were generally pretty goofy, intentionally pretty goofy. I think the final battle I remember being probably the most interesting. This sort of goofy, epic final battle for the cube orb of doo-doo. I feel like during this scene they kind of strayed a little bit more from game accuracy, which I think is fine because it's a movie. You need to take some creative liberties with stuff like this, translating a game like Minecraft to a film. But yeah, I think that's part of why I found that sequence more interesting. It kind of added that extra non-game accurate element that it needed to make it interesting for the purposes of a movie. So I'll try not to overspeak on the characters and themes because there really wasn't just a whole lot there, but I do feel the need to bring it up because they are such a significant part of writing. So I was actually pretty fond of some of the characters in our cast. However, they weren't particularly well written. They were, in terms of like character development, they were really just kind of there for the sake of comedy. There were some themes of like, don't be afraid to be yourself, be authentically you, be creative, who cares what the world thinks, yada yada. But they weren't really explored in very much depth, or really at all. It kind of felt like they were just like, oh, we're at this part of the movie, so they felt like checkpoints where it's like, oh, every so often we need to be like, yeah, this character has been developed, this character has come however far in their character development, just so the writers could kind of tick the character development check mark off their how to write a blockbuster film list. So, kind of disappointing. And it does kind of make sense that they wouldn't really explore all that too much. It is a very plot light film. But the real reason the characters were there of course, is for the jokes. And let me tell you, the jokes were alright. Nothing too special. There were some funny moments in there, but I really feel like on the whole, it was an average to slightly above average comedy experience. There weren't many, wow, that was a terrible joke, that felt completely flat moments. But there also weren't very many, oh, ha ha ha, I'm gonna remember that joke forever. There were a couple pretty notable moments, like the infamous chicken jockey, or hey, can you pretend to be my uncle and pick me up from school? No, I don't do that anymore. Like, there were a couple pretty notable funny moments, but for the most part, average, mid, no one cares. Now, I always try to briefly mention voice acting in these videos, usually because I am watching animated films, but because this is live action, or partially live action, voice acting doesn't really apply as much, but I will still mention my broad thoughts on the acting of the main cast, as well as the acting of some of the CGI characters, such as the piglets. So in regards to the main cast, I really feel like Jack Black's character and Jason Momoa's characters, in particular, were a highlight. I particularly really enjoy what I've seen of Jason Momoa's acting, and in this film I think it was really good too. Also his voice I thought was pretty character accurate and cool. I will admit that I haven't seen a whole lot of movies with him in them, so I haven't seen a whole lot of his acting, but I really like what I've seen, and even in this goofy ass movie it still really holds up. As for Jack Black, his acting has never really struck a chord with me, but I do recognize that it is genuinely pretty good acting. Like, he plays his role well, you know? And also, I just want to mention, I'm a sucker for a good beard, and God, I love his beard. It's so good. It looks so cool. It's so picturesque. Beautiful. I love it. The acting for Natalie's, and in particular Henry's character, I actually thought was pretty freaking good too. I feel like there's, in both cases, but in particular in Sebastian Hansen's, Henry's characters, I really feel like there's a lot of potential for some pretty good acting in future films. Just hopefully over the next few years, Hansen in particular gets some good, is able to land some good roles that really help him develop his acting abilities, because if his direction is facilitated, I really feel like there's a chance for, at the very least, a notable actor in the future, if not a very good and talented actor. The acting for Natalie's character, I feel like, was pretty decent. I feel like it could have been a lot better, but I think most of that can be pinned on the character writing. Judging by her acting as Enid from Tim Burton's Wednesday, Emma Myers, I think, is a pretty good actress. I just think, needs to land some more roles with decent to good character writing to really develop and show off her acting abilities and to develop in that career. Yeah, none of the acting or voice acting I thought was terrible. On the whole, most of it was pretty average. For the voice acting in particular, I really thought Malgosia, the piglin queen type creature, I really thought her voice acting was fantastic. Very character accurate, and it really fit the vibe and the aesthetics of the Nether and of the piglins, and I just thought that was all around a great highlight in terms of the acting / voice acting of the film. And now for my final element of analysis, the music. And I'm gonna be so real right now, I really don't remember like any of the music in the film. Aside from one of the outro songs, which, or credit songs, which was a pretty generic pop song, but it was still kind of a bop. Pretty catchy. I don't remember which song it was, not gonna lie. The one that played at the beginning of the credits is all I remember. But considering nothing really stood out in terms of being bad or good, I think it was pretty average. Same as pretty much everything else, just same as most of the rest of the movie. Not bad, not good, just a pretty average experience. I think the music in particular, I think, was pretty coherent with the rest of the experience, and just the sound design. I don't think it, like, had any reason to stand out, but I don't think it was horrible. At the end of the day, this movie really just serves as promotional material for the game of Minecraft, and as a mildly enjoyable, family-focused comedy film. And a decent way to pass through an hour and a half. And aside from the disproportionate quality of the visuals and the celebrity-lavished cast, it doesn't really step beyond that. And, you know, from this film, that's all we really needed. Anyway, with that, I'm gonna give it a 5.5 out of 10 on the Goober score. If you made it this far in the video, thank you very, very much. This video was a good bit longer than normal. I'm sure if you have seen any of my other videos, you'll be able to tell that the visual quality of this is significantly higher. I'm borrowing a camera from the church I go to, so I'm only gonna have this for a couple of weeks, and then it'll go back to the crumbing quality unless I can afford to get my own camera. So if you'd like to help me do that, maybe consider liking and subscribing. Wasn't that slick? And the song of the video is Crush 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 by Paramore. So yeah. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Please consider like, share, subscribe, yada yada, all that. And I'm trying to be more consistent with these videos, so yeah, that's fun. And I'll see you in the next one. Johnny! In spring of 2025. Guys, I did it! I said the thing! I look as autistic as I am. Wow, that's crazy.
She is like a giraffe.